Part 1. The audio is about ethics. Ethics are the rules we follow to decide what is right and what is wrong. Two different ethical principles are individual rights and common good. The example is a woman is dying. She has $10,000 in the bank, but she has no family. The woman tells her friend to use her money to hold a very expensive funeral. She tells the friend to buy a lot of flowers and the most expensive coffin. However, the friend thinks this is a waste of money. The friend decides to use some of the money for a simple funeral and then give most of it to a school for homeless children. However, the friend lies to the woman the friend lies to the woman and says he will use all the money to pay for the funeral. From the individual rights principle. It's written by the German philosopher of the 18th century called Immanuel Kant. He believed that the most important right is human is our ability to think and make decisions. This ability is what makes us human unlike an animal. To be ethical must think about respecting to the right of the other people to think and make decisions. So that is how individual right principle. Looking at Kant say, this is example we can say that different lies are ethically wrong because each person has the right to know the truth and lying is wrong because we are take away other person's ability to make decision. In conclusion, from the example and the principle of individual right is the lie is not ethical. Part 2. The audio is about Buttercup Gold and the other stories by Ellen Robin Novelli. The Lily Sisters. Once upon a time, there were three little sisters, dressed in green, who lived together in a beautiful place, which was owned by a great king. Such a beautiful palace as it was. The ceilings were made of turquoise and opal, and soft velvety green carpets covered the floors. Many other children lived with their little sister, and they had such a kind nurse called Dame Nature, who taught them how to do their work well, for everybody had some work to do for the great king. Surely no one could be unhappy in such a wonderful home, and yet, I'm sorry to say, one of the little sisters was always discontented. She knew for them nature had taught her that someday the great king will come to see who had done loving work for him, and would give the good lilies beautiful white robes and golden crowns. But she was not willing to wait until the king was ready and saw fit to do it. When the Sunbeam children came to play, she would hang down her head and sulk, and after a while they would leave her alone and play with her sister. And Professor Rain's school was out, and the jolly little raindrops coaxed her to play with them. She would say crossly, "You am too rough, let me alone," and they would go and play with the happy little sister as the sunbeam happened. Everybody laughed. The two good little lily sisters who were sorry to see how naughty the other lily was. But they tried to do their best to help her and kept on crawling. One day the great king, who had seen how well they tried to do, thought they deserved their robes and crowns, so he sent the sunbeams dancing away to awaken the inhabitants of the palace for the crowning. Away they went, peeping through the curtains and flying into the windows of the palace and walking all the little children with kisses. Then they took off the old green dresses of the sisters and put pure white robes on them and gave them crowns of pure gold. The other little sister wished then that she had tried to do right, and dropped until she faded away. Madame Wade and the Bird family gave a grand concert in Maple Street Park. Everything was full of gladness, and the Lily sister held a reception all day, and many people came to congratulate them upon being crowned. Among their visitors was Weird, who kissed them and took them to a little sick friend. He smiled as he pressed them into his hand and saying, "Take them, please, for Easter." And in her sweet child language, she told the story of Easter and the wonderful work the great King Son did for the people of the beautiful place. Part 3. The journal begins by her marveling at the grandeur of the house and ground her husband has taken for their vacation. She complains that her husband John, who is also her doctor, belittles both her illness and her thought and concern in general. She contrasts his practical rationalistic manner with her own imaginative sensitive ways. Her treatment requires that he do almost nothing active, and is especially forbidden from working and writing. She feels that activity, freedom, and interesting work will help her condition and reveals that she has begun her secret journal in order to relieve her mind. In an accent to do so, the narrator begins describing the house. Her description is mostly positive. As the first few weeks of the summer pass, the narrator becomes good at hiding her journal, and thus hiding her true thoughts from John. She continues to long for more stimulating company and activity, and she complains again about Johnny's patronizing, controlling ways, although she immediately returns to the wallpaper, which begins to seem not only ugly but oddly menacing. She mentioning that John is worried about her becoming fixated on it, and that he was even refused to repaper the room so as not to give in to her neurotic worries. She continues to long for more stimulating company and activity, and she complains again about Johnny's patronizing, controlling ways although she immediately returns to the wallpaper, which begins to seem not only ugly, but oddly menacing. She mentions that John is worried about her becoming fixated on it, and that he has even refused to repaper the room so as not to give in to her neurotic worries. The narrator's imagination, however, has been aroused. She mentioned that she enjoys picturing people on the walkways around the house and that John always discouraged such fantasies. She also thinks back to her childhood, when she was able to work herself into a chair by imagining things in the dark, as she describes the bedroom, which she says must have been a nursery for young children. She points out the paper is torn off the wall in spots. There are scratches and cuts in the floor, and the furniture is heavy and fixed in place, just as they begins to see a strange sub-pattern behind the main design of the wallpaper. Her writing is interrupted again, this time by John's sister Jenny. As the fall of Julie passes, the narrator reports that her family has just visited, leaving her more tired than ever. John threatens to send her to where medical. To real life, Michigan undergoes Carol Gilman had a nervous breakdown. The narrator is alone most of the time and says that she has become almost fond of the wallpaper and that attempting to figure out its pattern has become her primary entertainment. As her obsession grows, the subpattern of the wallpaper becomes clearer. It begins to resemble a woman stooping down and creeping behind the main pattern, which looks like the bars of a cage. Whenever the narrator tries to discuss leaving the house, John makes light of her concerns, effectively silencing her. Each time he does so, her disgusted fascination with the paper grows. Soon the wallpaper dominates the narrator's imagination. She becomes possessive and secretive, hiding her interest in the paper and making Sure, no one else examples it so that she can find it out on her own. At one point, she starts Jenny, who had been touching the wallpaper and who mentioned that she had found yellow stairs on their clothes, mistaking the narrator fixation for tranquility. Jen thinks she is improving, but she sleeps less and less and is confident that she can smell the pepper all over the house, even outside. She discovered a strange smudge mark in the pepper, running all around the room as if it had been rubbed by someone crawling against the wall. The pattern now clearly resembles a woman who is trying to get out from the behind main person. The narrator sees her shaking the bars at night and creeping around during the day. When the woman is able to escape briefly, the narrator mentions that she took creep around at time. She suspects that John and Jenny are aware to her obsession and she resolves to destroy the paper and for all, telling much of it during the night. The next day, managed to belong and goes into something of a frenzy, fighting and cheering at the paper in order to free the trapped woman whom she sees struggling from inside the prison.